Hello, and welcome back to the Turn by Turn podcast. I'm Chris, again flying solo today, and today I have a very special guest. I am joined by Nate, who makes the game Wildermyth. This is a game that I'm already pretty into, so I'm really excited to have Nate on the show. Welcome, Nate.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So, Wildermyth, for those who don't know, what is Wildermyth about?
Yeah, so Wildermyth is a tactical RPG where you have a party of procedurally generated heroes and you follow them through various adventures. It's really a game that's more about character development than it is about tactical combat, though. So we do a lot with that. Heroes grow old, they retire, they have kids. They can get permanently injured and maimed. They can lose limbs. They can have those limbs replaced by magical replacements. And then at the end of the campaign, they go into a legacy. And from there, you can play with them again in your next playthrough. So you're sort of like building a mythic pantheon across the course of many playthroughs.
And the playthroughs are pretty different from each other.
Yeah, so we have 6 authored campaigns in the game right now, which are each, I guess we'd say like 4 to 8 hour experience, depending on your play style. And then we have generic campaigns on top of that, which have procedurally generate chapters and string those together. They don't have the same overarching plot that the written campaigns have.
I gotcha. You say it's more about character and story choice. So in my playing this, I had a friend that loaned it to me for a little while, or just sat me down on his computer and let me play for a while. So one of the things he put me onto was, like, just as an example, my characters were walking through a forest and came to like this celestial tree, and they had to decide you could walk away from it or you could try and climb it. So of course I'm like, there's this like weird magic tree. Of course I've got to climb it.
Yeah.
And then you have the question of, well, how high? Do you want to go to the top? Do you want to go part way? You know, how much do you want to risk? And so of course I'm like, well, I have to see what happens if I go to the top, because, you know, risk it for the biscuit. So climb to the very top and you get a celestial wand out of it. And it was really cool.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, so like a lot of our events are built to permanently change the characters in some way, like that, where you interact with something magical in the world and that character is permanently changed afterwards. And we like to make that as visual as possible so that you can always see, you know, the memory of that event when you look at that character.
Yeah, that was something I appreciated a lot in him showing off all his characters to me. There were people, like you said, that had like crystalline limbs and things,
Yeah.
and some scars and things like that, or some really unique weaponry. And I mean, he had a story for every single one of those things for how that happened. And I thought that was really, really cool.
That's cool. Yeah, that's kind of what we're trying to do with the game. So it's always good when it works.
So have you ever made a game before, like before Wildermyth, or is this the first big project?
So I've been in the game industry for, I guess, it was like 10 or so years before we started Wildermyth. And most recently working at Riot Games on League of Legends. I was a front-end programmer there. So I didn't really interact with like the actual game workings too much. It was more UI UX stuff. But before that, I worked on Kung Fu Panda World, the Flash MMO for kids. It's sort of like a Club Penguin, but Kung Fu Panda themed. And I did some other stuff in the casual game industry before that. But Wildermyth is, I made some little games. I've always wanted to make games, but Wildermyth is the first big project that we've seen to completion.
That's awesome. Do you know if the Kung Fu Panda one is still up? I'm curious.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I sort of doubt it. It was a beautiful little game. There's a lot of gorgeous animation in it, but it just didn't really find a user base when it was released.
Yeah. Well, that's still really cool, I think.
It was fun. Yeah, it was a good time.
So, who is working on Wildermyth with you? Do you have a whole team? Is it just you?
Yeah, so we have a team. My wife does all the art. I'm the lead programmer. We have one other programmer now. We started at the beginning. We started in 2014, and there was another programmer, but he left early on. So then it was just us for a while, and my brother would be part time for writing. It's kind of the three of us part time for a few years, and me like sort of going more full time on it over that time until we got to a point, I suppose like 2017-ish, where we felt like the bones were solid and we wanted to get it out and get it into production. So we started hiring contractors for audio, and we had one of our friends do music for it, and yeah, it kind of just kind of grew from there. We brought on some more writers, and eventually my brother Douglas was able to come back on full time for the writing. We hired another programmer, so we are up to I think 7 full time employees now, and a couple of contractors. That's where we are.
That's awesome that it's been successful enough for you guys to really start growing.
We're really
Um,
lucky. Yeah, we're super happy with it.
So I know there's been some really big updates too. As far as I understand, you guys put out a multiplayer kind of expansion on April Fool's Day.
Yeah. So we were able to do that. The game was actually built with multiplayer capabilities from the beginning, but then we kind of pivoted and decided to focus on the single player experience. But we never got rid of the multiplayer code, so it was always in there. And yeah, we were able to just I kind of cranked it out in a couple of months, like turning all that stuff back on and making sure it wasn't completely broken. It wasn't a super solid experience when we released it on April Fools, but I thought it was a good joke to release something for real. Because
Yeah,
no one
I
was
did have
expecting it.
people tell me they thought it was a joke.
Yeah, yeah. And like the early experience was not that good, but we made it a lot better since, and we still got some bugs that we need to work on that. So
Mm.
it's going to get better. But yeah,
The
that's
way
something
that,
maybe for game 2 we would want to explore a little bit more.
oh,
Go ahead.
let's talk about that if you want. Is that what's in the plan? A sequel or?
So it's unlikely to be a direct sequel because, well, for one thing, like Wildermyth is the kind of game that because it has random events, like you could just keep adding random events to it for a
Mhm.
long time, right? Like it can hold a lot of content, and so it would be hard to turn around and make make Wildermyth 2 with like, okay, but with different events, and like, why aren't you just adding them to the same game? Um, so we could do it in a different setting or something like that, but that has its own difficulties of like finding something that fits as neatly as heroic fantasy, um, for what the team wants to work on. So so all that said, yeah, so we'll probably be continuing to add content to Wildermyth for a while, and we have a couple of ideas for DLC that we're pursuing. But game 2 is likely to be something different, like different enough that like the same content wouldn't make sense. And we have some ideas for that, but I don't think I can really get into them yet.
Oh, that's totally fine. So something that can always give us a hint though is what games inspire you?
Oh gosh. It's different for every member of the dev team, I know, but I really love games that have deep systems. So games like RimWorld, where the procedural storytelling comes out of the system, and there's very little writing, but the stories are amazing. That's really incredible. Like Wildermyth takes a very different tack, where we want to tell stories. We have writing with a capital W, which is mostly my brother Doug's work. But I think it's fascinating that you can tell great stories with a lot less, and that's really interesting to me. Like I play a lot of Factorio, and I play Dwarf Fortress and FTL and Kerbal Space Program and all these sort of like system games. Lately, we've been playing a ton of Valheim and really loving that. It's been great during the pandemic just to like hang out with friends virtually. yeah, like some of the best co-op fun I've ever had is Valheim. And what else have we been playing? I don't know. Some other stuff. There's a lot of great games. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed you name a lot of games that you kind of end up making your own stories as well.
Yeah. Oh, Hades. Yeah, I want to say is really inspirational in terms of storytelling. Like it's again different goal from Wildermyth, where Hades is trying to tell one story, but the way that you encounter that story is completely up to you, and the game is beautifully responsive to what is actually going on. That's really inspiring.
So I'm sure some of the listeners are wondering, how did you end up going from something like League of Legends that's very active and very I mean, I know games last an hour, but it can be fast-paced, to something like a strategy game like Wildermyth? What was that transition?
Yeah,
like?
so I gotta be honest. I guess I'm wearing a shirt, but like League of Legends is never my jam as a player. I played a lot of it. It's a great game, but it's too stressful for me, and I don't have the reaction speed that I used to when I was younger. And I take it too seriously, and that's not good. And anyway, so I was hired because I was a Flash programmer who could also do real programming, which is a little bit of a rare bird, especially back. I mean, Flash is a dead language now, but it was always hard to find people who could do software engineering in Flash. So that was kind of how I got in at Riot, not because I was great at law, but we were basically playing a lot of XCOM at home. We would play XCOM Enemy Unknown for just hours. We'd sit on the couch and tell each other where to move and like who to shoot, and that was just a ton of fun. And we were also playing a board game called Descent: Journeys in the Dark, which is sort of like a D&D light, but it's very similar. Tactical combat, simultaneous. Move all of the heroes on your team, and then the Overlord takes their turn. So like kind of between those two games, we got a flavor for the kind of tactical combat we enjoyed, which was planning out these deep, interesting turns. And like, we just wanted to kind of hit that, but in a fantasy setting where we could really go deep on the heroes. Like in XCOM, the soldiers are kind of expendable.
Yes.
There's not really a lot to them, especially in the earlier, in the first Firaxis game. I think they've gotten more into it lately. So yeah, we wanted to go long on
that. I see. So on this show, we end up interviewing a lot of people that have games in development that are coming out sometime later. And you guys have a very successful, established game now. So do you have any advice for people that are getting ready to launch a game?
Yeah, for us, player feedback was absolutely instrumental. We started taking the game to conventions and just watching people play. And we ended up spending 2 years in that phase just fixing combat clarity. Just combat clarity.
Wow.
People wanted to know what was going to happen when they clicked. Like, will I be able to attack that guy if I move there? Like, what is my hit chance? Like how much damage am I going to do? Like really simple stuff. It's like, oh, well, it's in the tooltip. No, it's not good enough. Like we spent 2 years making it. And we eventually got to the point where we stopped getting that feedback. People would sit down and play the game and just be like, yeah, it's pretty good. And they'd walk away. I'm like, what? Well, what just happened? Do you have any feedback? I'm like, oh, this feels nice. So that was when we knew we had solved that problem. We didn't know if the game was actually good, unfortunately. But we had to ship it anyway because we were kind of running out of money. So, but yeah, like take player feedback really seriously. And there's kind of a saying in writing and in games, like players always know when something is wrong, but they never know how to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
That's crucial, right? Like you need to take them seriously, but you don't need to implement their solutions. You need to just consider what the actual underlying problem is and then solve that. Sorry about the noise.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I think that'll be really helpful for a lot of people. There's also that there's something about like the Wildermyth Steam page as well that it doesn't feel like kind of a rough indie game. It feels like a very, very finished, polished game.
Thank you for saying that. I can say that we don't really feel super confident about our marketing skills, so it's nice to know that we're landing like that.
Yeah, I think it looks good. And I also wanted to add in there for you that a lot of those conventions you go to, you seem to have won a lot of awards at those as well.
We actually didn't win awards at conventions. We like, because the game, like, it's only cool after you've been playing it for a couple hours. So like on the show floor, you play it for 30 minutes and be like, all right, that's fine. But it's like when you get to the end of Ulstrix and like your heroes have grown old and their kids have come in and you see, oh, that's what the game is actually about. It hits at like hour 4. So most of our awards came like after the fact later, which is completely fine. We're totally honored to have them.
I just wanted to point out there's a lot of them.
we're super happy and humbled by it.
So you said player feedback. My friend who is super into Wildermyth did give me some different things that he wanted me to throw in there.
Let's hear it.
So some of the requests I got were the number one was a 5-act Gorgon campaign.
Sure, we should do that. I don't know. Campaigns are like are most requested, but also like they take a really long time to write. So that's a big commitment. That would be great to have a 5-chapter Gorgon campaign. What else you got?
Second was the ability to preview facial expressions when customizing a hero.
Oh. I get that. Okay.
And the last thing in feedback I have was in all caps. I want to be able to have half waterling children.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it kind of feels like a missing, like a missed opportunity there.
Cool. So I didn't get to meet the in my time with the game. I didn't get to meet the waterlings. What are they kind of?
There's one event where you can. I mean, it's minor spoilers, but you see a waterling. One of your heroes can chase after them, and form a romance with this NPC, which sort of like goes on in between chapters.
That's really cool that that's an option. That I didn't know that you could have a romance with NPCs. I knew you could with your party members, but I didn't know you could establish relationships like that would go on through NPCs and through different events.
Yeah, I think that's one of the only actual times we use that tech. But
that's still cool, though.
It's a good story. I'm really fond of it. I think players like it a lot.
Do you have a favorite little story in Wildermyth, either from you playing or that someone's told you, anything like that?
Oh, I don't know. Gosh. I'm really just sort of proud of like the kind of stories that we're telling in the campaign, like Enduring War and Fawn and Luna. Like I think Vulture Lord too. We're able to like get just a level of storytelling in there that I'm really happy with, and it just makes me really proud when I play it. And when it lands, when players recognize that, it's really awesome to see that feedback.
Yeah, I like that. I also really like the tone of Wildermyth, and that it doesn't feel too serious or too goofy. It's a very, very good happy medium that you're having fun, but also there's stakes and things matter. And
yeah. Like there's a whole talk on that, I think, where it's like you have to take the fiction seriously or no one else will, but you don't want to lore dump on players. Like you want to keep the focus on the characters, and it's okay for the characters to make jokes. Like that's what they should be doing that, because that's, naturally human, as long as those jokes don't break the fourth wall or like break the world. So we've always tried to work in humor, as much as possible, because it feels good. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, like Terry Pratchett is sort of our like guiding light in terms of tone. I mean, we don't want to be quite as satirical as that, but if you take the basic frame of a Pratchett novel, like a lot of the like tone that goes within that is something that we aim for.
And I think you hit that really well.
Thank you.
The last thing I have on this is too that I wanted to talk about is just the importance of choice. And I wanted to probe your brain a little bit more on how you set that up in Wildermyth, because there's lots and lots of games that hit you with your choices really matter. And I mean, there's lots of games I like that are that way. Fire Emblem's tried to do that. I like the Telltale games, and they've tried to do that. But at the end of the day, your choices ultimately don't super matter. So you end up getting to the same place no matter what you've done, and your characters end up roughly the same no matter what you've done. But Wildermyth, it really feels like your choices do matter, and there is that permanent change to your character based on what's happened.
Yeah. It's really simple. Here's the thing. You can't write a branching plot. It doesn't work because you have to write all of the branches. So in Wildermyth, we don't do that. We have like 2 branches to our plots generally. Like that's about the limit of what we can handle. But you can write permanent changes to characters. Characters can change permanently, especially in a game where characters are procedurally generated in the first place. So all of the content already has to work with any kind of character. All of the content already has to take into account that your character could be male, female, non-binary, straight, gay, whatever. Right, like all of the content has to work with all of the personalities and all of the relationship statuses that their heroes could have. So that means that any choice can easily have permanent character consequences. Like character stories, you can go crazy with character consequences, but plot consequences you just can't do. It's not sustainable. So anytime you have like specific characters and specific plots, it really limits your ability to have permanent, meaningful choices, meaningful consequences. And that's, I think, the strength of the procedural approach.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to throw that out there too and really emphasize something you said, which I think what you're getting at is if you're an upcoming developer, you really need to have reasonable expectations for what you can do, what you can achieve.
It helps. I know we thought Wildermyth was going to be a little game when we started working on it. And that was so wrong. Our scope was so much bigger than we thought it was. And I don't think we would have done it if we had understood that.
Mm-hmm.
We had to trick ourselves into like making this game, basically.
I've seen people say, I'm going to have 28 levels, and then it's like, all right, that sounds good. That's a Fire Emblem game, and then go, in chapter 8, it splits into 2 paths, and I'm like, all right, now you're making 20 more levels, like, and you don't even have the first 28 finished.
Yeah, just make like 3 levels first, and yeah.
I feel like
it's really hard. It's just like you want to do all this stuff, and we were extraordinarily lucky. We basically thanks to working at Riot, we had the runway we moved from Los Angeles to Texas, and we hunkered down, and we were in a place where we could afford to work on the game ourselves for a number of years without having to worry. So we were able to take all of that time to iterate on stuff without feeling the pressure. And then eventually when we knew, okay, here's the shape of the final game, we were able to hire just a few people to help us finish. But yeah, like having the luxury of being able to iterate without having to ship something right away was enormous for us.
Well, this has been really great. Do you have any final thoughts or anything else that you really want to put out there?
Oh, making games is hard, but it's pretty fun. I think, yeah, like for us, we always tried to, focus on the goals, focus on the emotions that we wanted to elicit in the players, and be true to those, and make the game that you have the team for is another one. Like we don't have any, animation, really any sophisticated animation in the game because neither of us were interested in animating. We don't have any 3D models in the game because neither of us were interested in making or animating 3D models. So we just took the team that we had and made the game that would work best with that team, and I think that was a big strength. The other unofficial motto is make every decision. Like don't just do something because it's what you do in that genre. You have to actually like think about how this decision integrates into the game and makes the game better or worse. So, for example, in Wildermyth, we don't have an inventory system. You cannot trade gear, and that's intentional. And players hate it, but we're not changing that. No, because the reason is when every piece of gear is soulbound, like it makes you care about the hero. It makes the heroes feel more like individual distinct people and less like soldiers, so that was all. There's a lot of little decisions like that where you just have to make them intentionally.
That makes sense.
It's weird. I don't know. We got really lucky, so don't listen to me.
That's your final advice. Don't listen to me.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
No, I think you've given a lot of very helpful advice to a lot of people. So thank you so much for coming on. This has been one of my favorite interviews we've done, and I really look forward to the future of Wildermyth and whatever the DLCs are that you have planned.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
If you want to listen to more of the Turn by Turn podcast, you can find us on Twitter at the Turn by Turn pod. You can find us on Instagram, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube, where we're making sure to respond to all of the comments. So make sure to leave ratings, comments, all that good stuff. And you can find me on Twitter at Chris_Harkey. You can find Wildermyth on Steam. What else?
Steam and itch.io for now, and then eventually we hope to be on the Epic Games Store and GOG, but we're not there quite yet.
All right, and if they want to follow you or the studio, where can they find you?
Discord is the best place to connect, but we're on Twitter and Instagram and Reddit and all the other places too, so you can always reach us there. All
right, and usually we ask what is the best way to support you because it's not as clear, but for you guys I would assume that's
just buy the game. That's awesome.
Yeah.
We also have a merch store though if you really want to.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't even know that. What are some of the things in the merch store? What kind of
so
stuff
we have shirts, pins. Wait, what else do we have? We're getting stickers real soon. They're not up yet. Do we have anything else? Yeah, I guess that's it for now.
All right. Well, if you already love Wildermyth and you've already bought the game, there you go. There's a way to support a little further if you want to. Thank you again so much, Nate, for coming on, and we will see you all next time.
Awesome. Thank you.